Hi guys, welcome back to my kitchen. I am spending some time this morning just being really intentional, I guess, with my time. I'm working really hard on doing that right now. It is something that I think I've kind of gotten away from, and so I'm really trying to fix that. So this morning I am making just a breakfast that takes a little bit of time, and that is some pumpkin spice muffins and some hot chocolate. So I'm going to start by getting all of my stuff together, and then I'm going to start adding the ingredients that I need to my mixer. So the first thing that I'm going to add is 3 cups of just regular plain white granulated sugar. And then to that, I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of butter. If you guys noticed in the very beginning, my recipe book, which is pretty dirty, I think is a good sign. It's a sign of a recipe that is well used. The recipe actually calls for shortening, but I don't like baking with shortening at all, so I replace that just with butter. So I'm just going to add that to my sugar and turn my mixer on and get that really nice and creamed together. Make sure if it is sticking to your paddle attachment that you are scraping that off. You definitely want all of that butter creamed in with all of that sugar. I am using canned pumpkin for this. If you really want to be a hero and roast your own pumpkin, you can. I just have found for the time and for the money, it's just easier and cheaper to just get a can. Make sure you're not getting pumpkin pie mix though. You do want to make sure that it is just pumpkin. So I'm going to add that whole can of pumpkin right in with my creamed butter and sugar mixture. And then to that, I'm going to add 2/3 of a cup of water. You want to make sure that this water isn't too hot or it will melt your butter. And then I'm going to pulse that together just to make sure that nothing comes flying out of my mixer. And then I'm going to mix that all together. The next thing that I'm going to add in is 4 eggs. I like to crack mine in a bowl because ours are farm fresh. If you have farm fresh eggs, you know what I'm talking about. You can always get a bad egg and ruin an entire batch of whatever it is that you're making. So I am just making sure I don't have any shells here. And then I'm going to add my eggs in just one at a time once I get them all mixed in. The smart thing to do really is to crack 1 egg, add that, crack another egg, add that. I did not do that today. So this is all of our wet ingredients all mixed in together. So I'm going to get started on my dry ingredients next. And the next thing that I need to add is 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You'll notice that I'm doing this in a separate bowl. I am not adding all of my dry ingredients directly to the bowl of my stand mixer because I want to make sure and get those dry ingredients nice and combined before I add those. And I'm going to add in a teaspoon of salt. A 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. It's always a good idea to use exact measurements. I just did 1/2 of a 1 teaspoon measurement. And then 2 teaspoons of baking soda. This next ingredient is optional, but I love to add it. I'm adding in a tablespoon of oat fiber, and that's just going to give me some extra fiber since I'm making these as muffins instead of cake. I'm just going to add a little bit of a health benefit. And then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And then a teaspoon each of nutmeg and cloves. Now I'm just going to grab a fork and mix all my dry ingredients together. That way, whenever I combine them with the wet ingredients, I don't have clumps of anything in one area. I'm not going to have just a clump of cinnamon or a clump of baking soda. That would not be good. So now I'm just going to add all my dry ingredients just all at once. And then for this one, I am going to definitely make sure that I pulse it. So I'm going to just flip it on and off and on and off. If you don't do that, then you can get flour just flying everywhere, and it's not fun to clean up, but it can really mess up if you're baking and want to make sure that you have exact measurements in there. It can really mess up a recipe if that happens. So now I'm just going to mix it until it's all combined. I don't want to overwork that flour, so I'm not going to let that mixer go for a long time, just long enough to combine it. And then it's always really important to scrape down your bowl and scrape down the bottom just to make sure that everything gets combined. So I have two different size muffin / cupcake tins. I have the regular size and then I have the jumbo size, and both of them I'm just lining with a paper liner. The reason I have two different sizes is just because this is what I have. These are going to bake at two different times, but at the same temperature. So you will want to watch that whenever you're baking, but you're going to start them out both the same. So I'm going to line them both, and then I am going to use an ice cream scoop because I have found that that is the most efficient way to fill my cupcake liners. So I'm going to do 1 full scoop of batter into each of the cupcake sized. Can we take a minute to just appreciate the color of this? This is just the color of fall in my brain, so it is by far my favorite thing to make for a fall breakfast. For the jumbo sized ones, I am adding 2 scoops. So I'm going to go through and do 1 scoop into each one, and then I will kind of divvy up the rest of the batter. But it ended up being about 2 scoops in each one. I did make sure and preheat my oven to 350 as well. The last thing that I like to do is just grab my brown sugar and sprinkle a little bit on top of each one. This is just going to make the tops of these muffins kind of crunchy and caramelized and really delicious. This is our favorite part of our muffins. And then if you have a clean oven, even better, but mine is pretty dirty right now, but I'm going to stick them in my 350 degree oven until they're baked. The smaller ones will come out first because they will take less time to bake. And then the jumbo muffins will probably take about 10 extra minutes. Once I have that done, I am going to start on my hot chocolate. So I'm starting with 1/4 cup each of sugar and cocoa powder. Once you make hot chocolate from scratch like this, I mean, I don't know how you would ever go back to having it in a pouch. And then to that, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of water and kind of whisk that together until it is kind of looking like a paste, like that, like a thin paste. And then I'm going to add 3.5 cups of whole milk to that. Whisk that together, and then you're going to put your top back on your pan and then heat it at a low temperature until it is warmed through. You don't want it to boil because you don't want to drink boiling hot cocoa, but You want it to be pretty warm, steaming at least. And then the last thing I'm going to do is add in about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of vanilla. And then breakfast is ready, so you can serve it up and enjoy.